Okay, we are live. It's Marla Goodman and Rose Chastain. We're going to talk to you about finding money. But first, we wanted to show you why we work for ourselves. You get to work in places like this, and you get to design your life. And that is why we work for ourselves and do all the hustle and all the hard work that it involves running your own business, which can be a real joy when you use your resources and you get expert advice, which is what we are here to give you today. So, Marla, do you want to start with your tip for the day about wealth and getting the money?
Sure. As I was thinking about preparing for this call, I started thinking about realistic financial goals. And so some of the things I'm going to talk about today are how do you get to that place? And quite honestly, I'm still figuring that out. You're farther along in your journey than I am. Along the way that are making a difference. So I thought I would share those today in setting realistic financial goals.
Perfect. The lovely breeze I'm experiencing is noisy, so I'm going to keep muting myself off and on. So I'm going to, let's see, I'll just jump in and talk about the one that I was going to do, and then we can go back to that and setting realistic financial goals. One of the things that most business owners don't think through is their business actually monetizable for themselves? And let's say you decide to go into the business of building widgets, whatever the widget is, and you know that you can make 50 cents, you can make 50 cents on every sale of this widget. People usually stop there and they go, good, there is some money to make here. And they don't think about, well, how much time is that going to take you to make that one widget? Widget is a little bit of a silly example. So, using something more realistic. Let's say you're selling produce, and you're going to open a produce stand. And you know that you can buy a basket of strawberries for 10 cents, and you can sell them for $3. So there's that much profit in it. What you don't calculate in is how much waste will there be? How much money are you going to actually lose? How can you control that? How much do you have to spend? How much time does it take actually going out to the farm, picking it? Do you package it yourself? How much time does it take to display it? Do you have to build your displays? How much money does it take for the air conditioning or for the refrigeration unit? How much gas does your trucks take? So there is about 1.5 million other hidden secret expenses that most business owners don't calculate in, including they tend not to calculate in the value of their own time. So if you drive to a farm and you pick your strawberries and then you display them, let's say that's 3 hours, 3.5 hours. And let's say you sell 10 baskets of strawberries and you make $2. So it's, $200 that you've made for 3 hours. Mm-hmm. And is that actually the kind of money you want to make, or do you want to make more per hour? What is your time worth for you? Obviously there'd be different in this example. Some products you would have more profit than others, but people hardly ever take their business idea and calculate it all the way to how much money are you making per hour for your time? Is that really profitable? Is it monetizable, your idea? So then that's the easy example, something like a farm basket. But what if you want to be a healer? Or what if you want to be a community organizer? Or what if you want to align businesses? Or something a little less tangible? How are you going to measure the success of that? And is it monetizable? So that's my tip for the day, Marlon. You want to talk about setting realistic financial goals?
Yeah, and I think what you were talking about being monetizable, the things I'm going to talk about to me are how I'm getting to that point. And, starting to say, what did I make in my last W-2 role, or whatever in my mind I'm comparing it to? Because my expenses, as you're talking about, are very different, and I haven't thought about pulling them apart. And for me, as a one-person show, my personal and my business kind of run together. So, for example, I can cut my personal expenses potentially, not just my business expenses, as I look to make the transition. So the first thing is, what are your sources of income? And it may seem, hey, I'm going to sell strawberries, but there's more to it than that. I might sell blueberries, or how about flowers because they also need the same refrigeration. About some of the things that will be your source of income. And for me, for example, I do market research consulting, broken into two things. One is having clients that are paying me for specific services, and others are large research firms that are using me for report writing. So it's kind of like the strawberries and the flowers. What are the different ways you're going to make income? And do you have the ability, if your things are not going as quickly as you had hoped, or you have some financial obligations, do you have other ways to make money, side jobs? And are those side jobs going to really conflict with the time you need to invest in making yourself successful? Are you receiving unemployment? Will that stop? Are you receiving retirement? What are all these things, and things you may not think of that go into your into this financial plan, your sources of income? So, and anything you want to add from a source of income, because then I'm going to kind of switch over to expenses.
No, it's perfect. Just multiple revenue streams is a very important thing. And often, as you were saying, you can do something like sell blueberries and flowers. Or let's say you're consulting. You can get paid for a consulting call. You can record that call. Then you can turn that into an ebook. And then you could sell the ebook or give it away to increase your business. So it's perfect what you're saying, thinking about the different multiple revenue streams. So no, take it away. Talk about expenses.
Okay. So from expenses, like you were talking about, what do you actually need to make to cover your expenses? And figuring out what those expenses are, as you were talking about, is exactly, some of it you'll think of ahead of time, and some of it you won't, and some of it only comes in conversation with other business owners or friends or coworkers that are saying, I think you may have missed this, or have you thought about that? So I think it's a little bit of a learning exercise, even with a lot of information going in, personally. But for me, I have a home office. So have I increased my utilities? Well, when it gets to be 100 degrees and I've got my air conditioner on in my upstairs office, yeah, I've got more expenses here. When I traveled full-time for business, I didn't have grocery, my grocery bill was zero. I'm actually eating food at home. So what are the various things that change that you may not think, in addition to now you're paying your own memberships for associations, and yeah, you've got a computer, but your computer gets replaced every 3 years. Now that's a business expense you need to take into account and build it out. Your printer, your paper, your normal things like that, as well as one of the things that kind of, it's a no-brainer, but kind of an aha to me, was just simply the amount of federal and state tax I have to pay on my own, and accounting for that in my pricing or my saving. And I'm in my first year, and the first year I'm hopeful is kind of the most linear. And so in those years, it's really important to budget and plan and think about those things. So taxes was something specifically that I hadn't really planned. And we talked about in our last time, proposal time. Sometimes I will spend upwards of 10 hours on a complex proposal. So how are you fitting that into that monetization and your cost? And that's why I love your idea of, having something for a client, videotaping it, making it into an iBook or a webinar, or whatever you can do with that. Nice to have marketing expenses. I take a lot of, when you're consulting, you need to get the word out. And a lot of that is face-to-face. But what can you do that's a little less cost, or translate to your personal, kind of make it a give and take? I'm going to eat out less personally because I'm doing this heavy marketing, which is so important to growing my business. Gardeners, clothes, dry cleaning, those kinds of things are, you can, for example, one of the things that we started doing is we probably had, my wife has a professional wool where she wears business clothes every day, and our dry cleaning is probably upwards of $200 a month. That's a pretty easy way. Some of the clothes need dry cleaning, but really she can iron her own shirts. So thinking of ways to be lean and efficient with the nice to haves. Anything coming to mind for you that I haven't touched on?
No, that's really great. It's perfect. You've got to think about both sides, not just multiple ways you can make money, but what are the multiple ways that you can actually save too. All right, cool. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say some of the potential savings, like a home office versus a space. I'd love to have a space to have more separation, but really, I don't need the expense at this point. I don't need the overhead, and everything I need is right here. So that was one of the things. It felt like a nice to have for what I do. I don't have clients coming in.
Yeah.
Um,
It's good. So we're thinking strategy and thinking through it, both how are you making the money and what are the costs that you're paying. And
yeah.
so then you have a strategy to your business versus throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks, right?
Exactly. And I keep thinking, I'll go back to that W-2 role, where I started in my mind. My mind keeps going back. I used to make this dollar amount in my W-2 job, and that's what I expect to make in business. Well, first of all, in my first year of business, I'm not going to be anywhere close. And my expenses, I'm paying my taxes, if nothing else. So it's much higher. So being idealistic, but realistic. Don't consider yourself a failure. I'm literally making a third of what I was making, and I'm really trying to stay positive and say, okay, what am I being prudent in my expenses? Am I thinking of all the opportunities? And do I have a growth plan? Building those clients and getting them initially is the hard part. You want to continue doing that, but getting started till you start getting more and more referrals, it's a little slower.
Brilliant. So that's our tips for today, and we will have more women in business giving you business tips in our next iteration. So stay tuned.